And boom, we are in the Wealth Mastermind, joined today by the wonderful Ary Doakes. Ary, thank you so much for being here. And a little bit of background, Ary is the money queen behind Badass Budget Babe. She's got over 7 years of industry experience as an accountant, a virtual CFO, but more than that, she brings along the knowledge and financial strategy that has helped dozens of companies and entrepreneurs from the startup stage to the multiple 7-figure stage achieve lots and lots of growth. And today, we're talking about mastering your money mindset, overcoming the limiting beliefs around making money that hold so many solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and high achieving professionals back from their true income potential. And I'm really excited for this one in particular. Ary is a wonderful human and a wonderful mother. And I would love for you to just introduce us, like what got you into pursuing all of this knowledge that you're now able to share.
Yeah, well, hey guys, thank you for being here and hanging out. Um, what got me into this, I went to school for accounting, did the whole CPA route. Like, it was really boring. It was horrible. I got in trouble for talking too much in my cubicle and all that good stuff. And the reality is, and what really got me into money mindset and understanding this part of things though, is it's like I'd gone to school, I knew this stuff, I was working, I knew this stuff, and I was broke. I was consistently getting more and more into debt and had this feeling of whatever, I've got all these student loans. What's another credit card? Let's book another trip. And tried to Dave Ramsy it and tried everything and felt so much shame and guilt because it was I knew better. I knew money, and yet I had nothing to show for it. And so that's what really, deciding to take care of my own finances is what really got me started. And how I started learning about mindset and where that all applies, and then started combining that in with also accounting knowledge that I had. And here we are all these years later. So it's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. Take us from the top of what are you going to talk to us about? What are the knowledge bombs that are about to be dropped?
Cool, guys. So I'm gonna talk fast. So just as an FYI, because 15 minutes isn't a ton of time, but to start, we're gonna go into how learning yourself, getting to know yourself in the highest capacity is gonna make making money and having a solid money mindset is going to make life way easy for you. Number 2, we're going to talk about your floors and your ceilings financially and how to kind of start to shift that to what that is and how that actually makes a difference to shift your really any area of your life, actually, not just money. And then 3rd, if we've got time for it, which we'll probably get into it in the Q&A as well, but just well, cool, now we know this stuff, where do we start? What do we do first? So that is the agenda. Nick, should I just dive right in?
Start diving.
Cool. All right. So knowing yourself, that sounds so fluffy and just go know yourself. But I'm going to be honest, if there's anything that you do, figuring out how you most naturally operate and working with that and creating a strategy for yourself is going to serve you a lot better than following whatever financial guru who says, only this percentage should go here and this percent should go there. And you should, like I said, I tried Dave Ramsy for years, and, you should never go to a restaurant if you've got debt unless you work there, and eat beans and rice. And so I tried methods like that over and over and over again. But I am I know myself. I am an ENFP. I'm an Enneagram 7. I'm a creator in the wealth dynamics. I am let's go big, let's go have a party. And that's how I want to live my life, is just having a party nonstop, basically. And so by constantly trying to force myself into a box that actually didn't fit, not only was I not seeing results, but I was also harming myself. I was creating so much shame and guilt because obviously I just must be broken if I can't stop booking flights all the time. And so that's not to say, right, those were things I had to change about. If you don't have money, please don't book the flight. That is a true thing that had to shift. And I was able to say, okay, cool. If I love spending money and it makes me really happy, how can I turn that into a game that works for my future, right? How can all of a sudden I can make, how can I make it feel like a party to go put $100 in savings instead of buying $100 pair of pants? Like how, if that's who I am, how do I stop fighting that and instead gamify it to work with me, right? And so with clients, I do use, like I use Myers-Briggs, I use the Enneagram, I use wealth dynamics, I use human design, and basically figure out how can we create a strategy that's going to work for you. So like, I use myself as an example because it's pretty easy and I'm not going to lie about anything.
Oh no, looks like we lost her.
All right, if you're frozen.
Baskin Robbins, and like that was it.
So
And
real quick, Ari, sorry,
yeah.
it cut out for like 5
Oh, no.
seconds. The last thing that you had said was, yeah, I'm just going to use myself as an example and tell the truth. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because that's a good stopping point. So when I, like something I started for myself because I knew these things about myself, I created a fun account, and literally like at first it was like 2% of my income would go into this account every single time I got paid. And like the first time that I started doing this, I literally could afford to buy ice cream. That was it, because it was not very much money. But having, instead of blowing my budget spending money on fun things because I just want to have fun all the time, I just prepared for it, right? And so like things like that, where when you begin to say, okay, cool, do I feel better with a spreadsheet, or like do I need a pen and paper or like an app? Somebody might tell you something different, and like what are you actually going to use? Do I need to have multiple accounts where everything is 6 minutes already? Multiple accounts where everything is set up with their own individual debit card, or am I okay like just separating it out? Do I need an education fund? That was something I needed, right? And so like figuring out, who am I, how do I operate, what is important to me, and then creating your own like money strategy off of that versus just following whatever you happen to find online, because it's all going to differ. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, floors and ceilings. Okay. So basically anytime, any area of your life, think your health, your career, the cleanliness of your house, whatever, there is a floor and there's a ceiling. And so the ceiling is going to be like where you like let off the gas, right? So when I hit my ceiling, and I'm just going to use random numbers, but like $5,000 in the bank, I'm looking at myself like, dang girl, like you're getting it, like you're so good. And then all of a sudden, like the floor though, right? That's the point where you look at yourself and you're like, what am I doing? Like, we need to like get our shit together, right? And so like at one point in my life, my floor was like negative $100, and I would get like an overdraft notification, and it would be like, oh shit, you go, like you're really messing up, right? And so here's the thing, you can raise your ceiling all day long. You can go from 5 to 10 to 100K, but if your floor is still down here at negative 100, you will always, and we kind of do like this, like I guess that's, what is that, a sine wave, throughout your floor and your ceiling. And so if you can raise your floor and focus on that, like I had to focus on going from like negative 100 to like 200 positive to like 500 to like 1,000, and like the self-imposing basically the number that I was going to start freaking out about, that I was going to be like, you need to get it together. You need to go make some sales. You need to go sell some stuff on eBay, like whatever you got to do, you got to stop spending money, whatever that number is. And if you can increase your floor and focus on that, like the ceiling can go forever, but you're always going to drop back down to your floor at some point. So if you take a focus on that, and like I said, every area of your life, like there's a certain number on the scale where I'm like, you need to go hit the gym, and there's another number where I'm like, dang girl, like you're so cute, right? So like that's going to just like, if you will kind of waffle between the two, and if you can figure out how to raise your floor at first, you will go a lot further, a lot faster. And then the third piece, so like, what do you do now, right? So if you are not currently taking control of your finances, or that's something that you want to improve on, the first thing I would do is to start spending time with your money. And I always say, like, if you treat your money the way you would treat like a loved one, so whether that's a romantic partner or your best friend or whatever, someone you love, like think about the way you talk about money, the way you think about money, the way you act when money is there versus when money is gone. Like if I talked about my best friend like that, how long are they going to want to be my best friend? Right? Like if you're always like, dang, I get money and then it just flies out the window, or, you know, people with money are greedy or selfish, or like whatever beliefs kind of pop up. If you talked about your best friend that way, like figure that out, right? What's going to be the effect, and start there, start shifting the way that you talk about money and that you hang out with it. And then what I do, and this is like, I will talk, this was the thing that somebody taught me that changed my entire life and like set me on this trajectory, is doing what are called money dates, right? And so it is literally, now they're about 15 to 30 minutes. When I first started, they took me like 2 hours, but it's literally like a date, a romantic date with and my bank account every single week. And I like, not quite so much anymore, but especially at first, like I did it up, like candles and like, here's a glass of wine if it was in the evening, or like my favorite coffee. You know, pre-COVID, I would go sit at like a fancy rooftop bar, right? Like something that makes me feel like luxurious, like I'm just getting it. And because what's going to happen, right? And like this is where you pull out your bank statements and you look at like, where am I at for my income for the month and my expenses, and what do I need to change next week because like maybe I'm not on pace for my goals, or maybe I'm totally on pace and I can just celebrate, right? By doing it in an environment that feels loving, that feels cared for, that feels like you are just, you love yourself so freaking much and full of gratitude, you almost become like, get this like Pavlovian response, right? Like now all of a sudden money and like the way that I feel at my favorite rooftop bar, those two things become connected in my mind, and dealing with my money becomes much more easy. And I automatically equate love and money together. And that is where I would start. How many minutes do I have left, Nick? Because I can keep going.
So I feel like this is a super interesting and fascinating concept. And like, quick poll, do we want Ari to keep riffing on this for a few more minutes? Because I'm interested. I see lots of nods.
Cool.
Yeah, keep going.
Cool. So I have a like workbook and like masterclass that you guys can totally have if you want it. And that is, it's pink. I don't know, you can change the color. It's a Google Doc. I don't care. But it like really walks through. So I start out with gratitude, right? What is it that I'm grateful for this week? And then I go into my income, I like write to myself about my goals, where those are for the week, for the month, for the year. And then go into like, you know, where is it that I made money this week and I loved it and it was so much fun, right? So getting paid for a speaking engagement, that's something I adore. And you know, I don't know, whatever. I sold something to a family and it felt really good, right? And then where did I make money that I actually didn't love it, right? So when someone pays me for like taxes, honestly, I really hate doing taxes. I'll do it because it is a very helpful thing and I'm good at it, but like I really hate it. So I'll write that down and then it's like, okay, cool. Like don't do that as much anymore. Like don't make that the focus of my business, right? And so now it's not. And then same thing with expenses. What did I spend that I loved and what did I spend that really didn't bring me that much joy? And so to kind of go off of that, and then also kind of connects to the very beginning one, when you, like Marie Kondo your finances, okay? So like, do you actually love the stuff that you are paying for? Does it serve its purpose? Do you love it? Does it make you freaking happy? Like, the reason I got broke because I used to work at the mall and like I had a shopping problem, and it was like if I was happy, I would go, let's go buy things. And if I was like had a really bad day, let's go buy things. And then I was getting ready to move out of the dorms, and I, mind you, I worked 3 jobs while I was in college, right? So I was literally working or schooling all the time. And then it came time to move out of the dorms and into apartment, and I had $0 to go buy furniture. Like my parents had to go buy me a kitchen table at Goodwill because I was like, I have $0. And I looked in my closet and I literally did not care about any of the stuff that was in there. But like, I can't do what I need to go do because of all the stuff that's in there, right? And so that's when I started really exploring, what does it look like to love every single purchase in a really real way? And how do I design my life around that? And like sometimes like my parents, they look at my travel like tendencies and they are like, why, like you can't just have fun all the time. That's what my dad says to me. And like that doesn't make sense to them. But like, you know, I drive an older car and like I don't go shopping and I don't really go out very much. Like, but I save all my money and it goes on plane tickets. Not as much lately, but you know, I figure out how to travel and that's really, really important to me. But like I skip out on the stuff that doesn't matter and like use that to like design my own version of my rich life. And like I can feel they can think I'm weird. They can think I'm wasting money. They can think whatever the hell they want because I'm super happy with the choices that I'm making with my money. And as long as I can say that and I can look myself in the mirror and be good with that, like then it doesn't matter. And now I'm done.
That was really, really freaking awesome. I so love the idea of this money date. I feel like a lot of us are probably going to try that this weekend. Glasses will be
Do
clinking,
it.
keyboards pattering. I'd be curious to maybe expand a little bit more on that. Like, what are some of the things that one does on the money date? Like, what are you looking at? Are you going through bank statements? Like, how do you treat yourself?
Yeah. So it is definitely, I do go through bank statements and right, like at first it's going to take you a while, depending on when's the last time you went through your bank statements. But like if you do it once a week, like really how many transactions do you really have in a week? That should be kind of a minimal activity. But here you are honestly, you are spending time with your money in this case, right? In the same way that you would spend time with a friend or a loved one and kind of go back to that, right? So there are some times where it's like pretty cut and dry, like we're on pace for our goals, we're having a good time, and it's like full of celebration and, you know, get out the champagne or the coffee or whatever. Other times, like there's been plenty of times where it's literally me like crying and like writing a letter to money being like, I'm so sorry. I am not treating you well. I know that like I can be better than this and I'm so sorry that I've put you through these things. And so kind of like you kind of feel into like what is it that you actually like need in that space. And so like there is the practical like what did we make this week? What did we spend this week? Are we positive or negative? And like the, you know, the structure of your budget, but also the like kind of that mindset piece of like what is coming up this week, what's limiting me this week, what beliefs are showing up as, you know, oh, that I hit my ceiling and I'm starting to freak out inside and I can see I want to go buy stuff to like bring my bank account down out of nowhere. Like I almost wanted to buy a towel warmer last week. Like a BuzzFeed article got me and I was like, I've never thought, but like I started to hit a ceiling recently and all of a sudden like things just sounded good to buy, right? So like getting real with myself then and say, okay, cool, this is where we're at. How do we want to proceed? How do we want to like what is in our best interest to move forward here? So that's kind of what you do.
Awesome. And I do want to open it up for everyone to ask questions, but I will selfishly insert one more because I think this is a great question. Like, how does one functionally raise the money floor? That was a really important concept. And I'm just super curious, like how do you get rid of the beliefs that influence it? Or how do you like what practices can you do tangibly to help someone increase the money floor?
So um, for most people, it starts with being like a self-imposed limit. Like like when I, you know, even if I don't feel like I'm freaking out and like need to put the pedal to the metal, like I say, okay, we're getting close to that number, like go get it into gear. Also creating, so something I will do is I have like a separate bank account, right? And so, or like, well, I've got multiple accounts. And so like my main account that I'm focusing on, I will almost like create a situation that causes that floor by putting the other money in like a hidden savings account, right? So it's like by hiding the additional money that's over there getting me closer to my ceiling, I can keep myself in a frame of mind that like we're super close to the floor and like we need to keep going, right? And so kind of like forcing like pretending like that's not over there. And I usually use online savings accounts as well. Like I use Synchrony a lot because they'll take my money out of my checking and in 1 to 2 days, but to get it back usually takes me about 5 to 7 days. So like, I can't just, like decide I need to take money out. Like I need to plan for it. It needs to be intentional. And so that's something that I'll do that was what worked for me. Go for it.
Yeah, totally free for you guys.
I mean, I was just gonna add, I think that that's a really like interesting point because I've noticed that now that you say it, it like resonates with me. It's like I have like a separate savings account that I put money in, and it's like I'm hesitant to put it back in like my checking account, my main account, because it's like I'm much more likely to go spend $300, $400 on something that I don't really need, but it's kind of like on my wish list. But if I'm below a certain amount, it's just like I'm not going to, right? So I think that that's actually like I equate it to like just psychology in general. It's like you decide what you want, right? And you need to decide what your floor is and actively decide what your ceiling is, and then you just like subconsciously get there. So I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
So does anyone have like a specific question that they want to pose to Ary or the group?
So I like love questions. So like there's no dumb questions. They don't exist.
I'm just kind of curious, when you changed your mindset on kind of the floor and the ceiling, like how long did it take you really to just kind of get to a point where the trajectory kept growing quickly and it was easy to control? Like, what was the timeline?
Once I finally like really went all in, it was, it's been I almost want to say like I don't feel like I've ever gotten to a place where like I can just like unconsciously like it's just gonna go up no matter what I do, because every time I reach a new level, like some of the same stuff comes up, and like I just get faster basically at seeing it and being like, instead of it taking me like a month and getting to the end of my budget and realizing I messed up, it's like 2 days and I'm like, I think you're doing that thing again. So I will say that like it, and then I've had a lot of like career changes over the years as well. But once I really decided, it did consistently go up, but I just wouldn't say like effortlessly. But I think like immediately when I was like, okay, cool, like you're never getting another like overdraft notification again. Like you're just not, we don't do that anymore. And so then it went up, and then it was like, okay, cool. $500 feels good. And then like that went up. And I would say within like a month of like up and down, but like once you decide something, like you just decide, and then like you go, like that's like the key piece is when I was like halfway decided a lot, like, oh, it'd be nice if I like stopped getting notifications, and then versus like, no, we're not fucking do that. That's not who you are. Also, you guys can ask any other money questions. Like if there's something I didn't cover, you can totally ask those too.
I have a question I'm curious about. Is there ever a time when you don't need to budget? Like when you just don't need to worry about it because you have enough income flowing in? Or is there any person that you think does not need to budget?
I don't think that. I think there are times in your life where maybe you need to be like very specific and be like, cool, like our food budget is $8, not $8, it's like $85.36. And like, we're going to be super duper specific. And then, I think when you get to a point where you feel like you've got enough coming in, maybe it is more, and this is kind of where, this is what I do with my spending plan now, is it's like, okay, cool, you've got, whatever, $800 on variable expenses. So whether that means I went out to eat or I bought groceries or I got gas, or like, it doesn't really matter. Like you've got this money, and guess what, when it's gone, like go buy ramen. But I do think that typically budgets are looked at as like, oh, I'm restricting my spending so that I can, whatever, something. But like, to me, like a spending plan it's more like me just saying like, hey, this is how much I want to spend in this category, and therefore like that's how much I've allocated to it. And so I think anybody, even if you're making a few $100,000 a month in your business, like you should still be conscientious and like decide. The whole point of a budget is just to decide where your money is going, right? It's not to restrict your money. It's to say like, before it gets here, before BuzzFeed tells me I need a towel warmer, let me decide that like it's not in the budget, right? So like that's more so what it is. And then if next month I'm like, hey, I definitely want it, then like I will just add that into the spending plan. But I don't really, I mean, I guess like Jeff Bezos probably is fine. Like he's probably just fine. But I think it's important to just like, you just decide. That's the whole point of a budget, is to decide beforehand.
Appreciate the answer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have any like recommended tools for budgeting?
I am definitely like a pen and paper kind of person. Like I have literally a specific notebook, and month over month, I like write my budget in there. And but like You Need a Budget is a pretty solid app. I think it's like $14 a year, or like it is a paid app, but that one I hear is really good. Mint is also a really well-known budgeting app, and so that can be really good. But the tools I use, so I use a combination of like, I've got my little notebook, and then I have a like regular checking account for all the bills that are on auto pay. I have a other checking account that is for my variable expenses, and then I've got like multiple savings accounts. And so that's kind of like, I just move like the amount that I need for the month that I wrote down in my spending plan, plus like a buffer, because I like to spend money on things. And so then I like put that in there, and then that should cover everything that I need from the entire month, right? And so like, and then I'm able to just put 100% of everything else that I make into my savings account outside of the business funds. So that's like the system that works best for me, but there's tons of apps. If you need a good spreadsheet, if you are trying to pay off debt and you want a spreadsheet for that, I got one of those. If you've got a business that's making less than like 10K a month, I've got a spreadsheet that you can use for that. I have like so many resources, and I can also point you in the direction of somebody else that has better ones if you guys need anything at all.
That's awesome. Thank you.
One thing I just wanted to share quick on budgeting is like, I used to want to do spreadsheets and have things like super like orderly and everything, but it became too complicated. So I just use literally a note, and I give myself a daily allowance. I just like keep track of like how much I've spent. Every time I spend, I just like minus and add, put it all together. Super simple for me, because I can't I can't handle keeping spreadsheets updated, bro.
I do the same thing. I have my expenses aren't that complex where I need a spreadsheet, but I like using like a Google document to keep track of my monthly expenses, along with my free cash that I get from tips from where I'm working right now. It's a good way to keep track of everything for my own use, and also for taxes later on during the year.
Awesome. That's awesome, guys.
I don't want to break the awkward silence. I want to use it to compel you guys to ask more good questions, because these are all very good questions.
I got one. I was working on unmuting and everything.
Do it, Jayla.
Cool. Okay. I guess so. I seriously love your analogy of like the floor and the ceiling, and kind of growing and developing as you kind of go along. And I guess my question is like how do you, I guess, balance being content even as your like floor and ceiling kind of change? Because like, for example, I remember like when I was a teenager, I would feel like super bad if my bank account was like less than 100, and it's like, chill, you're like 15, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I can definitely see like my floor and ceiling has like grown and like evolved as I've gotten older, but at the same time, I guess I don't want to get into a place where I'm feeling like money's the end all be all kind of thing. And like feeling super bad when I'm just not hitting a whatever mark or whatever. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on kind of balancing in that area.
Yeah. I think it is possible to strive for like you know what you're capable of, right? Like you know the ceiling that you could actually like smash through. And so there is like, I think it is totally possible to both know what you can do and feel gratitude and like content, not even contentment, but like satisfaction. So I feel like contentment means that like, okay, cool, we're gonna coast for a while, but like like I'm so proud of myself. Like, look, I raised the floor from 100 to wherever it is now. And like, look at me go. Like there was, you know, when I first started my business, 10K months was like, that was like the end all be all. Like, okay, if you could just hit 10K months, like everything's gonna be amazing. And then like now, like that is that's such a floor, you know what I mean? And it's like, am I for that? Of course. Like, and 10K a month is that's a fucking a lot. And so I think the key is to know where your vision is coming from, and that can help you get out of the dollars and cents, right? Like whatever that, and I'm just going to use 10K because it's a nice, pretty number. And I already said it. Like to have 10K a month, what does that actually mean for your life, right? Like the point, if you had $1 billion in the bank, but you couldn't use it and you could just see the zeros in like your bank account, but that was it, like it would be completely worthless after about 30 seconds of excitement, right? So what does the money actually mean for you? What does that mean for the people around you? What does that mean for your life, the impact you make, the all of these things that money actually gives us, right? Like to make this much or to have this much in the bank means I can XYZ. And so by keeping the focus on that instead of like it's easier to not feel bad about the dollar amount. It also helps to shift things. There are things that I thought I would be like, I always wanted to live by the beach. I always thought that it would cost me millions of dollars and I would be like 60 by the time I ever got that goal, and happened to have the chance to live literally across the street from the ocean for like 2 years. And it was, you know, like $1,500 a month. So like by keeping the focus on, I want to live by the beach instead of like, I have to have millions and billions of dollars, I was able to achieve what I actually wanted a lot faster than focus. So I think that that can be a really, really key thing is like, okay, cool. So you want the money, then what?
Yeah, that's amazing. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips or specific things you talk to people about in terms of building passive income?
I'm not super great at passive income other than like the advice of like use like, what is it? Like earn money, buy assets, or like earn money to go buy more money, right? So that's like what you're really talking about with passive income. As far as like where to go, the best advice I ever received was don't invest in anything that you don't actually understand. So like for me, my future investments are definitely around like buying other businesses and partnering there because I love business and I understand it and I know that that would be a good investment. Don't like the stock market. It really kind of like freaks me out a little bit. Like I will invest in that and like have somebody else invest my money in that, but like I'm not gonna do it. So I guess I'd be curious, like if you could go deeper on that question, because I know that answer was like really subpar.
I mean, I'm familiar with like some passive income streams that I was just curious if you had any specific, because I thought based off of some of the things you had mentioned that you might recommend, but if you don't, if it's not something you're super involved in, it's fine.
Yeah, no, like all my passive, like things that I've created, right? So like courses and like the template.
It's funny. Once again. I'll pick up the silence while we wait for Ary to come back.
I'm literally sitting right next to the router and I'm the only person home. So don't know what to tell you guys.
No, it's all good. Silas, what have you like looked into in the past? What are some methods to drive passive income that have like actually piqued your curiosity?
I mean, the only real thing that I'm involved in or have ever been involved in is real estate and a little bit of, like blogging and stuff like that, where you can get, like, for example, Medium, like the royalties I get on Medium, obviously is not significant. But those are kind of the main things I'm familiar with. But I was just curious. I'm just always curious to hear more other, non pyramid scheme type of passive incomes.
Right on. I feel like that's something that, we can open it up for the mastermind and take some of the pressure off of Ary. I have some thoughts. Like, all of my passive income at this point comes entirely from crypto staking and crypto lending. So if you invest in a project like Ethereum or Cardano, these are like some of the top 10 cryptos on CoinMarketCap, built into the protocol itself, you can stake those assets, which is extraordinarily low risk. You still have full custody over it, and earn somewhere between like 5 and 7% yield. So not only are you like following the gains of the crypto market, but those gains compound over time and they divvy out rewards to you like every 5 days. So that's one way, at least.
Nick, I wish I knew you a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. Help me.
I don't know if anybody else knows this, but I'm running into issues. I know on our last chat we talked about those different
Celsius Network and BlockFi.
Yeah, I'm running into issues getting it set up in New York State because New York State is a bitch with all of the crypto laws. So like I've run into a brick wall multiple times. I don't know how I'm going to do this if I just like change my address or I don't know, but I got to find a way.
So with Cardano, you don't have to use, like, all you need to be able to do is buy Cardano. So you can go to some kind of exchange that doesn't do KYC, like KuCoin, apparently. KU Coin is not going to screw you over and make you like put in your ID and like go into all the regulation stuff. And then you can buy Cardano and stake it for like 5% yield. And that's a very good long-term project to invest in.
What was the name of that?
Cardano. The token name is ADA, ADA. So that's one example. Like, and there are so many more. And if you have US dollars, you can convert them into stable coins, and then you can get exposure to yield farming through DeFi. And this is a whole rabbit hole of research unto its own. Never invest in anything that you don't fully understand, as Ary said. But the long story short of it is that if you convert your US dollars at a 1-to-1 ratio into something like USDC or Tether, you can add liquidity to protocols that have no central anything. It's all completely decentralized. And those protocols will lend out your coins to borrowers at high interest, and in exchange give you a little bit less interest. And those rates will vary depending on what protocol you're using, what the rates are in the market, but they can be north of 10%.
Got it. Okay. I'll have to look into those. Yeah. I'm also in the process of trying to decide how I structure my living situation in order to get some state with lower taxes, because New York can go fast.
Yeah. And
I love it here.
You mentioned real estate earlier, Silas. Like, Logan, do you want to share a little bit about kind of what you've been able to create with your duplex?
Yeah, I mean, New York is obviously different. So you might want to look at owning elsewhere, but that definitely is still.
I would do it back in my home state of Wisconsin, where I know people and I need a home base anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's something you don't necessarily need to be living in the state you invest in. I know a lot of guys have never really interacted with the properties they own. It can be easy if you have someone maybe who has less money available but is very interested in real estate. You can put like a 75% stake versus 25% stake, and they're the ones who manage it. And that would be definitely passive for you. You could split the money 50-50 as long as they're the ones managing the property. That's definitely, I think, a viable option if you're living in a state like New York, or you could move, of course. But as far as my duplex goes, yeah, that's something I've managed, and I've gotten it to about $700 a month cash flow. And the cash flow is something that I don't necessarily look at that metric 100% of the time as far as like whether or not I'm going to invest in something. But it's passive income. I could hold that property for a long time and consistently make that money.
Is your goal typically I was curious, I know you mentioned it, that it's not necessarily always your goal, but is your goal more so to build the equity in the house so that you can cash out later on and then go buy another property, or are you looking at cash flow primarily?
No, my main interest is in equity, consistently building up. I don't really feel comfortable with like cash flow or living off of that until I've got a very significant number of units, because I have a goal to build like an empire. But as far as passive income, I totally could look at real estate as a side project. I would be a lot different strategically. If anybody is interested in that, I'm happy to talk more about my strategies and what other strategies are out there for more passive income. But I think with real estate, I'm sure Nick can attest to this too, there's so many different ways you can do it to lend to all different types of lifestyles.
I'm curious. One thing I'm hoping to do is there's like a specific community that back in Wisconsin that I'm pretty familiar with, and there's a lot of people moving to that area. So there's kind of like an influx of what's the word I'm looking for? Reliable renters, and that they want to move to our state to go to that community. So a lot of these places, I know there's a ton of duplexes around the area and they're not for sale. Like, have you had any experience, anybody here had experience of trying to like get a hold of the homeowners or the owners of the properties directly through, unlisted properties?
I haven't had direct experience with that. I know a little bit about how people typically do it. It isn't like a super crazy process. Like you just got to send usually handwritten works well. Maybe you should join the real estate mastermind. We could definitely riff on it there.
Yeah, something like that. There's a couple guys that are doing it in different ways. One guy's doing handwritten notes. The other one's doing what's called driving for dollars. So like actually driving around 2 properties, walking up, introducing himself. That's the guy that's going to join us for the first call tomorrow.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely need to find something out, but thanks for that. I'll let somebody else take the floor.
No questions about money or building wealth or off limits. It's your time.
So one question I have, I don't know who would answer this, maybe Logan, he might know. What would the difference between owning a physical piece of property for real estate versus owning like a REIT off the stock market, like Realty Income or something along those lines?
Influence and returns. If you're going to, and I'm assuming what you mean by that, the latter option is you're investing in someone else who's investing in real estate, right? Like a conglomerate. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be returns and influence. You don't really have much say typically when you're going through syndication and what someone is going to invest in. You can, but usually it's like, we're going to invest in this property. Are you interested or not? We'll take your money and do something with it. And sure, you can make money on that. It's going to be a lot easier, but the returns are always going to towards the person who is in charge of that syndication, right? They're the ones who are really making the profit. So I don't really think you're going to see a higher percentage than if you were to do somewhat well in the stock market, compared to that kind of syndication investment. When you invest in your own real estate, you decide what properties you're buying, what happens with those properties, and when you sell the properties, which is a big deal because you're going through someone else. They could kind of screw over their investors to help themselves. If it's a bad market, they need to sell off a bunch of properties quickly. That's something you wouldn't really have the ability to choose. So I think it's much more preferable for me to have the influence. That's the point of investing, is that you're deciding to take control over your own income. And with syndication, you don't really get that, in my opinion. You're trusting someone else to do their job, and that person is only interested in making themselves money most of the time.
I have another question. So something I'm just curious about right now is I'm building like my podcast and my newsletter for my side business, which obviously is a digital asset. Does anybody know about the best ways to build digital assets? Should they be held by LLCs? Like, any things I should do up front to try to make sure I have it like easily separatable so I can sell it in the future?
Do you want to go first, Nick?
No, you go for it.
Okay. So with an LLC, you're really looking at the level of like litigation risk is mostly because from a tax perspective, like it all runs through the same. So if you are looking to sell it in the future, I probably would LLC it just because like then it is like it's still its own entity, it's still doing its own thing. But like in the like while you're just running it yourself, like the main thing you want to look at is litigation risk. And then like what could somebody reasonably sue you for in that, right? Like, and like, so like, what do your assets and liabilities look like versus like the businesses? So depending on how soon you're willing, like you're looking to sell it, I would say that. And then also making sure that like you have record and like, it would be considered like your IP, right? So like all the stuff you do, all your processes, all SOPs, like all that stuff, like having that in writing, having that something that somebody can literally just like plug and play is going to help you with your sales. And so to me, with anybody wants to start a business, the best way to enter a business is to act like you're planning to sell it, because you will straighten it up. You will not let things be a mess for really like immediately, that whether you decide to sell it or not.
But I'm curious, how do you have digital assets owned by an LLC? Like, I don't get it, because obviously I have to run the email accounts that sign up for all these things, right? That own it or whatever. So how do you define that? Is it just defined in the LLC that these are the assets from the outset?
Yes. So you would write like not bylaws, like your articles of incorporation. You're going to write those and you're going to say like this LLC is owner of blah, blah, blah. And then you as the like managing owner of the LLC, that's like, hey, I own the LLC and I work here. So I'm like doing all this stuff, if I'm understanding your question correctly, at least. But yeah, you would say like and so anytime that you are like making assets or purchasing things, like you're doing it under the business's umbrella, and then that way like they automatically are owned by that. And when you're an LLC, like there's still that mix of like it's you, but it's really like the business, but they're kind of the same. So that should help.
Got it. Okay. Thanks. Nick, did you have something?
Yeah, I would just add, do yourself a favor and like get a business bank account as well, and don't like blend your personal finances. I've fucked that up in past businesses and it's a nightmare during tax season. So there's tons and tons of banks now that are completely digital that like give you super crazy discounts on tons of stuff. I don't know when this happened, but it became like very competitive all of a sudden. Like now they're competing to give you discounts on software and all kinds of tools. Um, I'll find the name of the bank that I ended up signing up with, but you can just Google it. There's all kinds of perks.
Got a question on that topic, as long as that thought is finished.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a lot of my money, majority of my money is going towards investments right now. I have separate bank accounts set up for different types of investments. But recently, I'll use real estate as an example. I've been just funneling expenses through my personal account because I just don't have, like I'm spending a lot of money on rehab. I don't have that cash in my investment account right now. And I've been trying to record it just on a Google Doc right now, all those expenses. Is there a better way to organize it? Should I just be sending money to the investment account for my personal account and then funneling expenses through that? Would that be a better option? I kind of got tired of like sending money to myself to a different account. I wasn't sure if that was worthwhile or not. If that's a good strategy, I'm definitely happy to do it though. Any thoughts?
You said they're LLCs?
Not LLCs, just bank accounts right now.
They're just separate bank accounts. For tax purposes, I probably would still just like send money over, just because like if you ever got audited, it's like a lot less to go through, and it's just like a very clear that it does seem like a hassle. So I mean, well, like rehabbing, you're still talking like pretty large amounts. Like, I don't know, like if a credit card or something like that, that then like you can make the credit card payment, and like that might be like you would take out that middle step sort of kind of.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I would try to keep them separate.
Okay, a credit card. I didn't think of that. Because then I could just pay that credit card for my personal account. And it would still, okay, that's smart. Thank you for that idea.
Ari, if you're super, super heavily over allocated in one particular asset category, what you were saying in the very beginning of the call of like, you don't have to follow what any particular guru says. I feel like for me, that's crypto, and I'm happy about that. Like every single shred of what's it called? Traditional wisdom says that I should be skimming off profits and putting the money elsewhere or doing something. But there's also a part of me that thinks that this bull run has a lot more room to grow. How would you think, or like, is there any kind of mental model that you can give of like how I can answer that question for myself of like, well, do I just want to hodl to the moon, or do I or should I be thinking about like divesting?
Yeah. I would say it comes down to the question of like, if this all blew up in your face, right? Like if crypto, like all of them, just the bubble popped tomorrow, how effortlessly do you think that you can bounce back and be okay? Like, are you gonna go jump out of fourth story? You're probably just gonna get injured. Like you're gonna jump
40th.
off the Empire State Building, or are you gonna be like, all right, cool. Well, I'm 25. Like this sucks, and I'm just gonna go find something else because I'm like the kind of dude who will do that. So like your level of risk or like tolerance within that scale, that's what I'd ask myself.
Cool. I've thought about that, and I'm pretty sure that I'm just like genetically at like 9 out of 10 risk tolerance, and it doesn't bother me.
There you go. There you go.
All right, great.
Can't lose money if you never sell.
Yeah, can't make money unless you take profits.
Right.
Anything else, you guys? We're about to end the recorded piece of it in just a few short minutes.
I just want to say thank you for coming on. It was really, I think your perspective on the psychology of it is actually super helpful. Like, I think that just in itself is like a game changer for everything. Like as soon as you realize that, then I think it's all over with the crying.
Thank you. Honestly, first of all, this is like the coolest. Like, if I had this in my life, man, I'd be a way further faster. This is like really cool. Thank you guys so much, and like good questions. And also like Logan, I'm gonna need to talk to you about real estate. And like Nick, I'm gonna need to talk to you about crypto because I gotta step my game up. And you guys are very inspiring. All of you wonderful human beings. Thank you.
Well, that's a very beautiful note to end the recording on. Bam.